We went out, we ran into some old friends, and I heard even more rumors because they were asking about him and everything else. They said, "Oh my gosh, we have to tell you." And they just told me all of these stories, and it it broke me.
Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today we're talking about why men look at other women. My guest, Kristen's husband, moved out without even telling her he was planning to. She was devastated. That's when she found the 6 intimacy skills and started practicing them. She's going to share an unexpected twist on her journey to becoming a ridiculously happy wife. She'll tell us what she did so you can do it too. But first, let's talk about why men look at other women, because part of why you decided to go all in with your man and commit to him is because he made you feel special. And if you're like me and most women I talk to, you want to feel special in your relationship. That's important. And when you see your husband checking out other women, it's not only disappointing, it can be threatening. Like, that's not the agreement we had when you said I was the most wonderful, special, amazing woman in the world. It can make you angry if he's looking at another woman in an obvious way. Like, come on, just keep your eyeballs in your eye sockets, please. It can be embarrassing and make you feel insignificant. And you shouldn't have to feel that way with your man. So, what gives? Why is it so difficult for a man to just be respectful and only look at you and not other women? I mean, in a perfect world, he would only be interested in you, only want to talk to you, and only have eyes for you, right? But this is not a perfect world. And I still remember how shocked and disappointed I felt realizing this myself. I wanted to be the only one he looked at ever. Because if he didn't ever look at anyone else, then I never had to feel afraid that he was going to find someone other than me more attractive and threaten my status as his one and only. But we live in a world with a lot of beautiful women, so many, and there's no real way to never look at them. Sometimes it's unavoidable. And funny thing, I find myself also noticing them and wanting a good long look at times. I even complimented a beautiful woman at an athletic clothing store recently because while the rest of us were schlepping around in our workout clothes, she was wearing a fabulous dress and heels, and she had her hair perfectly styled and her makeup was really tastefully done. So I wanted to look. It was like this public service that she was going around so beautified like that. And I took pleasure in admiring her appearance, just like I do when I'm watching a movie with a beautiful actress or seeing a model. And I just find it's fun to look at beautiful people of either gender. But since we women are the ones with the tail feathers in the human species, it's especially fun to look at women. And you might say, well, Laura, that's different. You might think there's no harm in me admiring a beautiful woman. And I agree, because that's all I'm doing. I'm just admiring. But what if that's all your husband is doing too when he looks at other women? You might be thinking that obviously that's not all he's doing when he's looking at another woman. He might be thinking things that you don't want him to think. And I know from my own experience that it can be very upsetting to think about what my husband might be thinking about that I don't want him to think about, especially if it's all in my head to begin with. You know, I can make my own imaginary horror shows, but I don't really know what he's thinking. Everyone has private thoughts. I can't know what they are, but I can know the kind of experience I want to have. And I can focus on that because that's how you get more of what you want. So here's the question I've had to ask myself in those moments when I'm upset with him for thinking him whatever it is I think that he's thinking. What would I have that I don't have now if he wasn't thinking what I think he's thinking? Especially when he looked at that woman who just walked right in front of us. That's how I can get my eyeballs off of his paper and put them squarely back onto my paper so I can figure out how I feel and what I desire. And maybe I feel insecure and I want to feel desired instead. And that's the experience I want to be having. I might want to know that John admires me and finds me attractive. So when that happens now, I just pop a pose and I ask John, what do you think of this outfit? Or how do you like my hair? And he is happy to tell me how cute I am, like as much as I want. And that might sound a little needy. And I guess it is. But as a mere mortal woman, I like to feel seen and desired. I get a lot of unsolicited compliments from John every day, but sometimes I solicit them too. And John seems happy to admire me whenever I want, regardless of whether I'm sweaty and sandy from the beach or if I'm all dressed up like the woman that I saw in the athletic clothing store. I also get lots of spontaneous kisses and cute texts, and I get to go to Disneyland for our 34th wedding anniversary last night. And all of that makes me feel so special that it doesn't seem that significant if he notices the beautiful scenery going by. Sometimes I even point out the scenery for him. I'll be like, check out that one. And we enjoy that scenery together. You might think that's weird, and I can see why you feel that way. But for me, it's not that different from pointing out a work of art or a shooting star. So if you find yourself feeling bad or upset when your husband is looking at other women, the question I have for you is, what would you have that you don't have now if your husband never, ever looked at another woman? Maybe you would feel more secure or admired or special. And that's perfect because that's an experience you want to have. It's not something he needs to do or not do or think or not think. It doesn't really have much to do with what he's looking at, as much as you might think, actually. So starting with your desire to feel special, how can you have that even when your man just looked at another woman? One way to have that is to check who he has his arm around, or who he sleeps beside, or who he's working to support, and who he watches rom-coms with, and who he comes home to at night, and who he's raising kids with or does chores for. You can check who he committed to for life in front of God and everybody, and who he professes to love. If that's you, then good news. You have evidence that regardless of who he's looking at in passing, you're very significant to him. If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. My guest Kristen's husband moved out without even telling her he was planning to. She was devastated. That's when she found the 6 intimacy skills and started practicing them. She's going to share an unexpected twist in her journey to becoming a ridiculously happy wife. She'll tell us what she did so you can do it too. Kristen, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. I'm so excited to have you here sharing your story today.
Oh, thank you, Laura. Oh, it has been a long journey. So I want to say thank you so much for everything that you've done for me because it's been years now of practice and it's really been paying off.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I give you all the credit for, for focusing on the intimacy skills and creating what you've created now, which I can't wait to hear all about. But first, let's go to the bad old days. What was happening?
So I've got this is funny. I've got two sets of bad old days. And so I'm in my second marriage right now. So my first marriage, it was rough. It was very rough. We eventually ended up in counseling, as so many people do, right? As we were going through counseling, he quit. And so I was going to couples counseling by myself and going through that. Eventually, my counselor, I asked her, like, well, what can I do? Like, what's wrong with me? How can I make this better? He's not even trying, right? I feel like I'm throwing all this effort into it. And she looks at me and she's got this cute little accent, right? And she's like, well, you are too masculine. So they're thinking, like, oh no. She's like, you cannot have two men in the same relationship. And she's hitting her fists together. And I'm like, well, how do I fix that? She didn't give me that kind of opportunity to fix it, which is what I was trying so desperately to do. So I quit counseling. Um, we were already in Cold Wars. There was no PI. Anytime we would talk, it would become explosive at this point. And it was really rough. Um, So about midnight, I couldn't sleep. About 4:30 in the morning, like any other like desperate housewife out there, I stumbled across you and your book. Um, I remember reading it and I just broke down in tears. I'd been working in the oil field for 10 years as a service repairman, and I was just heartbroken because I realized I was taking all of this work stuff home with me. But my counselor was trying to tell me, but she wasn't getting it through. And I was super controlling. I was overly disrespectful in everything that we did. Um,
Mm.
I tried to do the skills on myself, tried to DIY, try to base it off from the book and the podcasts. And it got me through a couple of months and we had more stuff happen. Um, we found out that there was a gambling issue. We found out that there was rumors of another woman.
Mhm.
Um, there was a lot of financial issues that I was coming across, but I was trying so hard to lean on the skills that I could figure out. I wish I would have reached out for coaching back then. Oh, I had no idea what my I was getting blindsided by. I had no idea how I was coming across. And I thought I was coming across and like following the skills, but I was getting more and more controlling. I was just shifting it around a little. Um, and then one day I thought things were going really good. I was like, okay, we're getting some progress here. This is great. I signed up for coaching, and that same week he walked out on me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so I didn't have
Oh,
any kind of a heads up. I thought things were good. So
oh
sorry.
no.
um, yeah.
Oh,
So
awful, Kristen.
progressing, progressing from that, I quit coaching. I said, I
Yeah.
can't go on like this. I could practice
Wasting
the
money
skills when
at this point. Yeah.
that's
Right.
how I thought it was. Yeah. I'd made it through two sessions. I told her this isn't going to work. I have to fix this some other way, or maybe it's just not going to work. Um, so it's like I could work the skills when he was present, but as soon as he was gone, what do you do?
Seemed hopeless
So
at that point.
exactly,
Yeah.
oh man, it tore my heart apart. And so I went through a couple of different lows there. You get that point and you're like, is it me? Am I worthless? Am I just that horrible? I thought I was trying to fix things. I hit a huge low there. Um, and trying to come out of it, one of my girlfriends one day. At this point, we were living separately, obviously. I had no idea where he had moved to.
Oh,
um, we would communicate still by phone occasionally. Um, the divorce word was getting thrown around, obviously. And I wasn't showing up disrespectfully either on those phone calls. I had so much emotion. and I was apologizing a lot at this point because that was one of the last coaching mementos I could hold on to. And as we went through it, I ended up one of my girlfriends. She came in and she was trying to cheer me up. She's like, "We'll go out in the town. This will be fun." So this is my second low from this first marriage. We went out. We ran into some old friends, and I heard even more rumors because they were asking about him and everything else. They said, "Oh my gosh, we have to tell you." And they just told me all of these stories, and it it broke me even more so. So bawling mess in the middle of a public scene, right? This gentleman that had been hitting on me earlier, but I'd been turning down. He's like, "Can I just drive you home? You need it." I agreed. Um, so I ended up having an affair in the middle of trying to fix my marriage. And so, I mean, it was absolutely heart wrenching to go through that. And I remember that shame and that guilt afterwards, right? And I thought, oh my gosh, what have I just done? Like, obviously, this is horrible. But I went back and I thought, I want to keep myself dignified. That's what I've been trying to aim for so hard. And I knew I had to tell him. And it was going to wreck even more so of the marriage that we had, even though we're going through these divorce steps. And I told him, and he said, "Yeah, I'll send you the papers tomorrow. This is it."
Oh,
And
oh.
I,
This is in the
yeah,
context of you
yeah,
really having all this evidence that he also has someone else. And I mean, he's left you, he has someone else. It kind of seems like you're alone, right?
oh, definitely.
And you're saying it so accountably, and I hear um, that it felt undignified in the end, but so understandable, right? That you would be looking for evidence that you're still lovable when you've gone through such a heartbreaking, devastating experience. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely not the right thing to do, especially when you know what you want. And, uh, um, as my story continued on, it was so strange because I said, I am dedicating myself to the skill set, right? Because now I'd realized how this stuff went. I felt better about myself. I wasn't feeling great, don't get me wrong, but I felt like I did the right thing. I had integrity and I had some sense of composure again. I was developing self-worth, which I didn't realize I didn't have. Um, and so kind of going forward from there, the divorce process got serious. I got papers. And it hit me even more when he asked for money to go buy a condo out of state. Um,
Oh,
so I knew it was over, right?
like,
Um,
no, like, oh,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, I'm not doing
right.
that. But yeah,
It was so much to try to recover from. It felt so painful and so heavy. Oh,
yeah, we're
um,
laughing now, but I can just imagine that's incredibly painful. That is some hardcore rejection is what you endured, right? And you really didn't know exactly why that was happening, it sounds like.
yeah, I had a lot of confusion, and with that confusion came a lot of anger covering up, that hurt that I had. I couldn't figure out what was even going on. It didn't make sense. Um, and so we went through the divorce continuations, and we're just doing this over the phone now. We're trying to do it between ourselves and send what we want over to the lawyers. I showed up. I showed up dignified. I gave him complete control of the process, but I still expressed what I wanted out of this. Like, this is what I would like to see. And finally, it got to the point when, I felt healthy enough to let myself start dating again. That this is going nowhere. It's not going to work. I'm I'm okay with that now.
Mm.
And I did. I started dating. But the weirdest thing, Laura, I ended up meeting somebody that I clicked with immediately. Um, and we we fell we fell in love fast. And we started making these huge plans. We're gonna get married, we're gonna go try for kids. We're older, so it was gonna be a lot more problematic. And we were excited because we were coming up close on my divorce date. And as we were getting there, I remember him saying, like, I'm so happy to have you to myself finally. And I was so, I was touched by that because I knew he had plans for us. And then the day before the signing, my husband called and he said, we don't have to do this. We don't have to sign. And I just remember sitting there going, what? Like, oh my gosh. And so, like, in retrospect, looking back, I realized he had to heal completely differently, I guess, than I did. I had skills, I had the capability, I had some tools, right, to lean on and try to work on myself. And maybe he didn't. I don't know what he was going through. But he didn't heal as fast as I did. And here I was like expecting him to. So like I had this timeline stuck in my head. And when he didn't do it, I moved on. And I had to tell him, I said, I am so sorry. Yeah, I've given my heart to somebody else. And it it was so just heartbreaking to look back and go, oh my gosh, if I could have, right? If I could have known that you need to have patience, that you need to let go of those timelines that are stuck in your head, that you can hold out longer, you can wait longer and let somebody else do the work that they need to do for themselves. It could have changed some things. So
Wow.
at least it was a beautiful foundation
Oh,
for
yeah.
me to start with. So,
It must have
oh,
been like such a tall, cool glass of water in the desert to have
oh,
him say that because this is so you not only had you were having a yeah, you created a great relationship with your new man, but you also like total it sounds like love and forgiveness and peace with your husband.
mhm.
Yeah, amazing, right? Like who doesn't want that? and
Right.
and I also hear how heart-wrenching, right? How heart-wrenching to have to deliver your news at that point. Like this no longer fits for me.
It was it was so rough to do that. And again, I knew I needed to keep my dignity. I had already promised myself away, but I felt validated. I felt like that respect had actually been restored to our old relationship, um, at least to a healthier level than what we were trying to leave it at. And that's just through the divorce proceedings, phone calls. So,
But what a
but yeah.
precious gift to give yourself really to have that dignity. I mean, not everyone's divorce story sounds like that, right? You hear a lot of divorce stories where there is people are looking for revenge, really, to punish the other
um,
person, or they're feeling really just destroyed emotionally, and uh, that wasn't that doesn't describe your divorce at all. It was quite the opposite.
mm-mm.
Um, it's amazing. I'm impressed by that. I'm impressed by that. Yeah.
Thank you. Mm. I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, going forward, the skills came in handy again. Just you're always going to have something that you're going to need to practice with, right? The flash forward in this new relationship, my new man, we're engaged, things are going great. And I picked up my coaching again, receiving coaching, because I was like, I don't want to mess up again. That was horrible. I DIY'd so much, but I couldn't hit that next level. Um, and as we were going through it, things were great. And then we had to postpone our wedding due to family issues. And then we were waiting on some other stuff. And next thing you know, it's Christmas Day. And we find out he's going to be a grandpa, which is great. And everybody's excited. That like I could feel something, right? I felt something shift in our relationship. And I couldn't like tell what it was, but I was like, oh, something just changed. Weird. So I asked him later, he's like, oh, are you excited about this? How do you feel? And he said something like, I can't be a grandpa and have my own kids. Oh, so, oh my gosh, there is so much hurt. So, trying to work through that, as you can imagine. You know, suddenly he doesn't know what we're doing anymore, and all these big plans we've made were just ripped away, and
Oof.
it set me off. So,
Sure.
oh, I went back to like the pre-Laura at all day. And mind you, I'd already finished up all my coaching, so I was like, oh my gosh. Oof. I was angry. I was emotional. I had crying outbursts. For several months. I couldn't control it. I'd see like a happy family and I would just lose it. Just, oh, I want that. I almost had that. It's gone. And I I made our relationship terrible. Single-handedly. You could do
Oh,
that, apparently. I did it really well.
oh,
Um, but I
wow.
was just so like torn inside. I hadn't been able to resolve it. So going through that, like one day I like woke up and I was like, wow, I know better than this. Like, I love this guy, and here I am acting this way. I wouldn't want to date me, let alone marry me at this point. Come home to yelling and crying, and you know. So I said, okay, I got to clean up, and I got to go double down on the skills. I already know what I can do. I know how to make this better. I had a framework to clean up my side of the street again because I was not showing up like myself at all. Um, And so as we went through that, it was so weird. You could start to feel a little bit of the respect come back. Like that started raising the bar. I was apologizing a lot. I was throwing in a lot of gratitude, a lot of praise for everything that he would do around the house. I was looking for that positive evidence that he still wants to be with me. I was getting it. He wanted to be with me, but he didn't know if he wanted to get married and have kids. So I was like, okay, so it's not me, it's not us, it's the future thing. Um, so it was really rough trying to navigate that. And I ended up, after several more months of getting it cleaned up, it started getting better. We weren't avoiding each other. He was coming home, at normal times, in order to like have some conversation with dinner and go to bed. And things were getting to feel good again. We started inviting each other on little weekend trips and little mini getaways on errands to go to the store. And it felt like things were going really good, but I would still lose my, I would still get lost in my thoughts. I'd still ask him, I go, okay, so what's going on with us? We're so good. Like, why would you not want to get married? So, which is so convincing, right?
Right.
Yeah. Um, and it just, it, I still had that control. I wanted this thing on my own timeline and I needed to know, and you weren't telling me. And I have these things going on in the back of my head. And so I hit another low. Um, I realized that with that thought of being engaged to him, but not getting married ever, I was living in this like circle in my head and it kept bringing me down into net. Even though I could get the relationship better, I was still not good. Um, so I went through it and I told him, I love you. And I had trapped him in a vehicle at this point because we were on our way back from a hunting trip. And so it was about a 5 hour drive. And
Perfect.
so on the 5 hour, yeah,
You can't get
I was,
away. Yeah.
yeah. And I was kind of expecting him to propose on this trip because things were that good at this point, and he didn't. So I was like, wow, I keep putting myself into net, thinking about these things that I want, these things that I have to have. And so I I told him, hey, I love you. I love us. I love everything about us. And I think we are perfect together. Everybody thinks we're perfect together. Our families love each other too. Like, I can't just keep waiting. I need to know what's going on. And I can't be engaged to you without getting married to you. And I'd like to go back to just dating. And we both cried a little on that trip because it was that heavy. We had a lot of things that were intermingled at this time. We were playing house together. We had his daughter had moved in with us at this point, and it was still a lot to try to separate out. And dating just sounded so much easier. I didn't have those heavy expectations on him. He wasn't my fiance now. He was just my boyfriend, my date. And I didn't have to push on him. And I could relax a little. Um, it was so horrible trying to let family know and let them know because they kept asking, right? When are you getting married? When are these kids coming? Like, when are you going to start trying? You better start going soon. Like, oh.
Oh,
But it stopped those conversations. And I still showed up to that with dignity, right? It's like we really like each other. It just we don't know what we're going to do with our futures. Try to open it up. Um, and so finally things started getting a little bit better again. We're kind of building up from this weird dating stage that we're going through, even though we're this old. And as we were going through it, I felt like he might be drifting. I had to let go of that even more. And I was like, oh, I can't make him marry me. Like, that's not right.
doesn't feel
I
good.
was getting ready to, yeah, I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, I could probably try again. I was like, that didn't go good the first time either.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
it,
Yeah.
yeah. So I had to
Yeah.
like back up. I had to let him go do his own thing and ended up going on another hunting trip. And he didn't invite me this time. So he went with his, out of state to go see his family and do some hunts. And as he was going through that, um, it was a little bit after he'd gotten home already, gotten settled, and I was still away working at this point. I hadn't made it home yet. He called me and he started talking just normal. And then, this is what the hunting trip was. Because, oh, I got to see all my family, etc. It was so nice. And he goes, oh, and we're getting married. Just out of it. No, he didn't ask. No, he
There's no
didn't tell
proposal
me.
there. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
we're getting married.
Oh
Oh
my,
my gosh,
music
Laura.
to your ears, I'm sure.
Yeah. I cried so hard and he was so sweet about it. And I had to ask him, I was like, where did this come from? Like, I've been trying, I got nowhere, right? So who talks some sense into you? And he was so sweet, right? He shared with me, he goes, I was talking with my family. He goes, they were all asking where you're at, everybody loves you here. He goes, but I started talking with some of the gals here. And they said, well, why would you not want to marry her? And he goes, well, I thought I couldn't give you children because I thought with my age and with, everything else, he'd had failed IVF in his past. He's like, I didn't think I could. And so if I couldn't give you children, I didn't want to take that away from you. I didn't want to get you stuck in a marriage where you couldn't have those things because he couldn't give it to me. That was so sweet. At that point, we both just cried, right? And so they talked some sense into him. They said, hey, look around you. It's the girl's age that matters, not yours.
Oh,
So don't worry about your age as a guy. You're good. You're good. Just go for it. And that's kind of what led us up to it. And it's been absolutely amazing ever since. So,
so when you kind of just gave him the space to think about things himself, it sounds like you got out of hinting, cajoling, demanding, expecting.
mhm.
And he had the freedom to have those conversations with his family. He that's when he got enrolled in like Kristen's the one. I've got to go marry. And okay, so and what about this issue of it sounds like you have a strong desire to be a mom though. So what about
Yeah,
that?
so oh my goodness. So as we came into it, I was worried about the finances. I was working still in the oil field, trying to control that masculinity, as I was warned before. And and I shared with him, I was like, okay, I picked out some companies, like these things. And he goes, oh, he goes, so you're worried about the money? I was, well, yeah, it's kind of expensive from what I hear. He goes, I've got a savings account set aside for this already. So he'd actually been saving up and was gonna put this money towards us already right off the bat before we're married. This is like within the same conversation. So I was so just overcome because I mean oh, it's a lot to just release. Um, but since then we've begun IVF. Yeah, we're still going through it. If it works, it works, and if it doesn't, so be it. But we're trying. Um, and he encouraged me to leave my job even. He wanted more time with me. And he knew I needed to go through the treatments and it was going to take so much time. And plus, I wasn't fully enjoying my job the way I should have been, just with everything else going on and worrying about it. Plus chemical exposure, everything else that gets into those issues, right? Um, and so coming out of it, things have been amazing. He's become the absolute provider. He's, you know, increased his income. He is phenomenal. He handles everything. He takes care of so many things for us, and I am so just utterly grateful as we're trying to navigate through this strange time. Um, but yeah, things are incredible. We're back to talking like old friends, and we just have this playful communication. So we're always, you know, I'll get a butt pat and stuff if we're in the kitchen together. You'll walk by. It's joyful. It's so fun and playful, and I am beyond happy. So
I love that. Wow. So you are in the happily ever after part. You are a Disney princess now. It sounds like.
yes, I am. Thank you.
I love it. Well, congratulations on it must have taken just so much courage to say to him, like, I don't want to be engaged anymore. I want to just date. Like you were really um letting go of I mean, you were scared. I'm sure you were scared that
I
meant
was so terrified.
terrified, right? That we're never going to get married and have a family. It's not going to happen.
Mhm.
And I'm going to accept that and just I just want to date you instead of being engaged to you. How did you have the courage to say that to him?
When I was rebuilding our respect, I kept having that fallback. I kept going back to, oh, but we're still not making plans for marriage. We're still not, because I'd see this ring, I'd get those commentaries, and it would just hit me all over again with that emotion. And I realized, like, if I keep yelling at him, that's not going to help. So I was like, how do I stop my yelling? Everybody keeps asking. Um, and so I had to think about if I can just remove that part to let him know. And this is like the most awkward semi breakup ever, right? Because I really like you, but I'm not sure. And at the same time, the old me, like back in the day, it would have been like, hey, I'm out of here. That would have been it. Instead, I
Right.
think when I came up to it, I shared enough. I expressed what I wanted still. I told him, like, I want you. I want us. I love everything about this, right? And I had to let him know, like, I can't. I can't keep doing this and not have this next step in place. I'm a little too rational, a little too logical to like not be able to do that.
Yeah. So this is the ultimate in self-honoring. You're honoring Kristen and also being so vulnerable. And you mentioned you both cried. It must have been it was actually a very connecting experience to deliver that message, it sounds like.
It
Yeah.
was, and at the same time, there was so much fear underneath it because, and I didn't know if he was going to walk away. I didn't know if he was still going to try even anymore. And at the same time, I saw no matter what I did, I was trying to control it. And the control never really worked on any of these cases for me. The timelines that I had, when things should happen, I wasn't winning there. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it it's so accountable. The way you tell the whole story, it's so accountable. You're like you were saying earlier, like, so I ruined the relationship single-handedly. But the good news is you also created the relationship you have now. How it sounds so free and so emotionally safe and so connected. And I really hear that you feel so adored and taken care of. And you created that too single-handedly. And you even healed your first marriage as part of this, right? That was an outcome too. So, and I'm sure, when you first got your hands on the intimacy skills, you probably didn't picture yourself where you are right now, but I bet you wouldn't change a
no,
thing either. This is
no,
the journey you were meant
yes.
to be on. Like, this is where you're having the experience that you wanted to have now. And as the expert on your own life, right? That was the only way to get there, was by listening to your heart and honoring it. And you did such a great job of that. So that's amazing. So what about now? Like, so I don't know. Do you feel like some of your old, does your old thinking ever pop up again? And, you know,
So I'll call it my masculine side. Yes, it does quite a bit. But I have a way to come through it, right? I have a way to look back and go, oh, I need to apologize for that because that was rude, that was disrespectful. I didn't need to share all that. That was too much. So I can go back to I can clean up my side of the street now, and it is such a burden off from my shoulders to know that. Sometimes it takes a little while. Maybe it's going to be like a whole day for me to calm down and be like, okay, I was wrong. I do need to apologize before I can do it. But I do. Ugh. And it is so much better just to feel that intimacy, that hug you'll get afterwards. Going, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I mean, it takes so much humility, right, to do that. I still find that is true, but it sounds like you've got a superpower now to clean up when disrespect has come out of you as a mere mortal woman, which sometimes it does, right? Because we are still
Mhm.
mere mortal women, and it sounds like he responds to that really well when you clean up. Yeah.
He loves it. Sometimes he'll throw some bait. I told you so, or something along those lines. But I
What?
can look at it and be playful, a little frustrated, but playful. So,
Right, right. There's a lightness to everything, it sounds like, even and it does kind of bust the tension, I know, for at my house too, when I find that humility and accountability to apologize. It sounds like at yours too. So what is your tip for someone who is, I mean, I especially love this story of being just feeling like you were kind of in purgatory as far as getting married, and you loved it, you had a great relationship, it sounds like, and you just really wanted to get to that next milestone, and control wasn't working for you. And somebody who wants what you have now, like, oh, okay, not only did he say we're getting married, we did get married, and now we're trying to have a baby. What's your best tip for her to get where you are?
it goes back to even my first marriage is I didn't know what he was working himself through. I didn't know what his thoughts were, what he needed to work on healing, or I was ready, but that didn't mean that he was ready yet. And if you can let go of that pressure to pester and ask those questions and keep bringing it up, you can just stop. It lets them have that space, lets him do his own thing at his own time and get done what he needs. And then also just keeping that respect. Oh my gosh, it took forever to rebuild the respect. And every single case once I had, crushed it. So
Well, I think that can be the scary part. Like I've crushed the respect. How's it ever going to come back? It's probably over. And yeah, and you've got two examples of it wasn't. You were able to rebuild in both cases. So how did you, but when it comes up, right? When like whatever is pushing you to be disrespectful comes up. Yeah, I mean, how did you do that? How did you develop this
I think,
superpower?
I think one of the best things is I turned it around to myself and I said, okay, how can I get my mind off from this? How can I not be so frustrated? And I went back to self-care. I went back to all those things. And granted, after my time in that industry, I didn't have any self-care routines until I started to get the coaching. I didn't realize I wasn't doing self-care right because there is a right way.
Oh,
Until she started walking me through, like, does it feel good? It's like, no, I hate doing this. She goes, then don't do it. That's not self-care. It's like, well, self-care, I'm doing my nails, I'm doing this. No, you need something else. um, when I could bring it back and focus on things that I enjoyed, have something joyful in my day, and then also not waiting around. It made my timeline about me instead. So I wasn't worried about, oh, is he coming in for dinner? Is he even going to show up? What time is he going to? No, I said, I'm going to make dinner at my normal time and I'm going to have enough for leftovers. If he shows up, that's great. He can have some of those. And it was so easy to focus on those specific things. And I journaled constantly because at that point I needed an accountability partner, but I'd already finished all my coaching. I wasn't sure how this was going to go yet. So I was like, we'll try something here.
so you internalized the intimacy skills enough to be your own accountability partner by that time, it sounds like.
Mhm. Yes.
No, I love that. I love that. So, and I love this example of like, of course I do my nails and I don't enjoy it, but I have to do it, right? And feeling like self-care, I can imagine there's not a ton of opportunity for self-care in an oil field. So I can see where that would have been challenging. You know what's funny, Kristen, as you were talking about, like my counselor saying, you're too masculine. And I'm looking at you and I'm listening to you and I'm like, this doesn't match. You seem very feminine. Uh, so would you say that you've transformed in that regard? Or, I mean,
Yes,
like if I talk to old
definitely.
Kristen, I might sense
Oh,
some of the masculinity. Oh, okay. Oh, she
oh,
says, oh,
definitely.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything was black and white. And it was a very harsh tone, is what I'll say. Still some playfulness, but a harsh kind. It wasn't fun. And you got to think too. I was in a man camp for a long time. I only really had guys around me. There was maybe 2% women there, and that was my life. That was what I did. So I didn't know
Yeah.
any other way. I would grunt, and I was like, I think you say like little smaller, less hairy, but I was a man at that point. So
A little smaller and less hairy, more beautiful, but
yeah,
not,
thank you.
yeah. 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 Okay. Well, yeah, I totally get it. So we have proof that you can kick butt in an oil field, but also that's not what you choose right now. Like you're honoring your
Mhm.
desires to be a wife and a mom, and yeah, and a skills ninja, an intimacy skills ninja now. So yeah, it's cool. So what do you think you would say if you could go back in time and talk to Kristen? What would you tell her that you know now?
Oh my gosh, be patient, a little bit of patience, and then just that reminder. Everybody's going to have their own journey. Maybe they do need to heal. Maybe they need to figure something out for themselves. And just because you might do it faster, maybe you have the skills to lean on. Maybe you've got this tool set. Maybe you've got these different things that help you through it. That doesn't help the other person, and they have to do it for themselves. I wanted to just drag them along, and be like, "Hey, I'm done, so you're done too. Come on, we're set." So it didn't work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 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 So I'm not a very patient person either myself. So I can relate to so I hear you. Yeah, you would just be like saying, yeah, tranquilo, just relax, maybe do that self-care. So
Oh,
so
definitely.
you're not so focused on what he's doing or not doing. And yeah, that's a great input. Well, I want to just congratulate you. You've done a
Mm,
tremendous job just really transforming yourself. I just hear so much more femininity, humility, accountability, and dignity that you have developed personally. And this is really resulting in you being able to create the kind of relationship you always dreamed of having. And this takes so much courage and dedication. So, congratulations! I do want to give you my wife award. Here it is. You've earned it. Congratulations. So it's very inspiring to hear what you're able to create with your um, relinquishing control and your self care and your respect for your husband. Well done, and thank you so much for
mm.
sharing all the details of this story with us. It's just so moving to get to hear the whole thing.
Oh, well, thank you. I hope I can help somebody else. There's always hope.
Yeah, there's always
Mhm.
hope. There's always hope. That's what I take from your story today, for sure. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you, Laura.
What's it really like to be a relationship coach, and how do wildly successful relationship coaches get that way anyway? Find out by listening to the Successful Relationship Coach podcast with Master Relationship Coach Kathy Murray, one of the best relationship coaches in the world. She has helped so many relationship coaches become wildly successful, including me. She shares her secrets every week on the Successful Relationship Coach podcast. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. On next week's podcast, we're going to talk about how to fix your marriage to a bipolar husband. And in the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that when someone cuts me off in traffic and it gets my adrenaline pumping, I leave the windows rolled up and I say, driving lessons would be helpful.